Hello, and welcome to Follow Your Curiosity, where we explore the ups and downs of the creative process and how to keep it moving. I'm your host, Nancy Norbeck. I am a writer, singer, improv comedy newbie, science fiction geek, and creativity coach who loves helping right-brained folks get unstuck. I am so excited to be coming to you with interviews and coaching calls to show you the depth and breadth both of creative pursuits and creative people, to give you some insight into their experiences and to inspire you. Have you ever felt a pull you didn't understand to do something that sounded crazy or even stupid, but that nagged at you until you either followed it in the hope of making it stop or beat it into submission because you were convinced it was impossible? If you have, you'll find my guest today especially interesting. Paige Kaufman trained as an early childhood educator who went on to be part of a kindergarten teaching team for several years. Then she started to feel a pull she didn't entirely understand that said she should be doing something else. She followed it, and now she runs a wellness and spiritual hub in Ontario, Canada. Paige and I talk about that journey, from the societal forces that make it difficult to follow that sense that we should do something we don't expect, to the difficulty some of us have learning to trust again, to the fear of fear itself, to the things she still uses today from her kindergarten days. She also tells us about float cabins that essentially force you into a state of meditation and the creative breakthroughs that have come for those who use them, something I definitely found especially fascinating. Here's Paige Kaufman. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Me too. So
my very first podcast interview.
I'll promise to make it as painless as I can. So,
oh, perfect.
You teach kindergarten right now?
Actually, yes. I am on a leave of absence right now, okay. So that I could go full time with my career path, with opening up the spiritual wellness hub.
Okay.
A year ago, I was doing both. Mm-hmm. I was doing part-time, but it was just too much. I had to take one. I had to go full-time, either one, so that I wasn't pulling my energy that much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but luckily I am able to take that leave of absence where I can leave it there just for kind of like a backup and come back if I would like to. So that's I am definitely lucky that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love to know how you got started teaching kindergarten before we get into what you're doing now, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, for sure. So about 6 years ago, I'm actually an early childhood educator. So here in Ontario, Canada, we have a team of a kindergarten team. So it's the teacher and the ECE comes together and we teach kindergarten together because we both have different aspects, different knowledge on how to work with the students. So my role being, I took 2 years learning about children and how their brain works and how their development is from 0 to 6. So I would be able to bring that in. And then the teacher, of course, brings in, because they know how to plan, they do the report cards and things like that. So when we come together, that's how it works. So I was doing that full time for about 6 years. And I don't know, it was just something, all of a sudden, this little nudge, this little niggle, I like to call it, right in the center of my stomach, or now that I know what it is, and right in the middle of my solar plexus, my power center, which I know now too. It just kept nudging, it kept niggling. Like I went to bed with it, I woke up with it, and I was like, okay, what is this? I'm listening, but I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I don't know how to get rid of you. So as I sat with it, I learned that there was that niggle, that nudge was me connecting to my higher self, to my soul was calling me, saying there's something else you're supposed to be doing. There's something more you're supposed to be doing. It's time to wake up. It's time to face that call. And pretty much saying, I'm not going away until you do something about it.
Clearly.
Yes. So I did keep working with it. I did keep so I went started on this spiritual journey, the spiritual awakening. I started the meditations. I started just doing more research, reading more books, just kind of understanding what was all happening to me in this point. And then finally one day, I, of course, was totally into crystals at this point. So one day I went into a crystal shop in one of the bigger cities with a friend of mine, and they had like this little hidden door behind in the back, and I was like, oh, what is in here? I don't know what it is, but I need in here. So I asked them, and like, oh yeah, it's our spa, like I'd love to take you for a tour. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I need in there, so show me what you got behind this door. um and it turned out it was like this. They had a salt cave for halotherapy. They
Ooh.
had float pods for float cabins. They had infrared sauna and all. And so then right then it like hit me like a wave. It's like this is what you're supposed to bring to your hometown, to your community. This is what you need to do to bring healing into your community. um so as soon as I began that awareness, I was like, okay, awesome, cool. And the nudge, the niggle actually started to fade a little, which was awesome, but it was still there. So I was like, okay, cool. I hear you, spirit. I get it. Great. But I'm an ECE. I don't know how to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just starting on the spiritual journey, or like a year into it. To me, that's still just novice. That's still just starting. So how the heck, sorry, am I supposed to put this together? Like, this is huge. um, but the message I got was just start. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It does. Just do it. Just do it messy. Do it scared. Just do it. Um, so again, I listened and I did it. I got out just like whatever I could find on the internet as far as business plans go. I put it on paper. It was slow. It was ugly. I didn't even want to touch the financial piece because, again,
Right.
numbers just aren't my thing. um, but then I trusted universe. I put it out to source again. And I said, if you want me to finish this, I need help. I need a partner. I need support to help me see this through, or to help us see this through. And lo and behold, I ended up meeting my partner on a Facebook group of all places, a spiritual Facebook group. And somebody had put out there about uh, where are my Canadian girls at? And
Mm-hmm.
one of us had put where we're from, and then the other one kind of responded like, "Oh my God, we're only like 20 minutes away. How cool is this?" So we got up, we got meeting each other, and as we got talking, we kind of put out that question: if you could do anything, what would it be? So I told her my story about how I had this awakening. I was, knowing that there was something more for me to do, and how I was going through this process. And then she had said hers would be doing like the spiritual teachings as well, as she's been doing this kind of work a lot longer than me, just pretty much lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of said, well, what if we put everything together and went with it? And yeah, it didn't take her very long to jump on board. But she was my missing link, right? She
Mm-hmm.
was the one, she was the organized one, the techie one, the one that was wonderful with all the numbers and financial piece. And plus she had, she wanted the spiritual piece in there as well, and do the spiritual teachings, which was beautiful, and could do some different healing work as well. Um, so yeah, we were able to put our two gifts together. My big vision that I had, um, because I am a visionary, where I have these big pictures, but I have no idea how to put them together.
Mm-hmm.
And she's very specific and very orientated. And so by the time we put our gifts together, and we opened up our first spiritual wellness and wellness and spiritual hub in our small town of like 22,000. Um, So this is huge in from where I'm from. Nobody, we're learning there are a lot more spiritual people out there, but they were um, in the spiritual closet, as I like to say. Uh, so as soon as our doors were open, the people, our community that just flooded through, it was like, thank you so much for opening this. Thank you for doing this for us. It's just been amazing that, yeah, to hear that call to do it ugly, but to do it anyway and just keep going, and to know where I had this vision, this nudge, this niggle about 3-4 years ago, and then it all came to life. So it's been quite the ride.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, a lot of beliefs, right? Limiting beliefs I've had to work through, right? Fear, doubt, imposter syndrome, right? You're not good enough. All that wonderful stuff I had to work through. I'm still working through it, of course. I mean, those are things that are pretty deep embedded, but I definitely had to work through those to get to where I am as well. So much growth and learning has happened along the way as well. So it's been wonderful. Just such a different feeling.
It sounds like it. You just watching you, since everybody can't see you, you do kind of have this happiness around you. Not that I know what you looked like before, but still. So I'm curious, because that's such a huge shift to go from working with kids all day to salt caves. When you first started to realize what this was about, were you disappointed, or were you just so curious about it that it didn't matter, or somewhere in between?
I was just so curious about it that it did matter. I just knew that I trusted what was being told to me, what was being given. At first, honestly, actually, I wasn't. I'll tell you the truth. I actually went to a medium, and I was like, okay. And I even left it for like my last question, right? And I was like, so this is what I've been getting. Weird. And they're like, no, this is you remembering. This is you coming home. Like this is you. Embrace it. Because really what you've been doing your whole life is what you were told to do, what society told you to do, right? You were a people pleaser. You had the American Canadian dream, right? You get the husband, you get the job, you work 9 to 5. In my case, I was lucky enough to have summers off with benefits. But it just wasn't enough anymore. There was that nudge, that niggle, that knock, right? That there's more out there than just doing what you were told to do or what you think you should be doing.
So was that at all a conscious thing? Did you reach a point where you were like, I think I need to be done with this, but I don't know what to do, and then this came after? Or did it just come up out of absolute nowhere?
It really came up after, well, I shouldn't say it came out of nowhere, because, again, going through this work, I realized that it usually comes when your world's been shaken up. And it definitely came after a time when my world was shaken up. I had some family stuff go on. I kind of lost my mother to addiction. Ooh. And that's where it kind of spun me to like, okay, if my mother, my parents, my figure is supposed to be, she was supposed to tell me or like teach me who I'm supposed to be, but she has no idea who she is. She's wearing all these masks and trying to cover up who she truly is with, addiction. Then who am I? Like, how am I supposed to know who I am then? So that's really what got the thing spinning, the mind spinning.
Wow.
And that's what really hit me with there's something more to this.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I don't want to specify. I didn't actually lose my mother physically, but emotionally I lost her.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Just wanted to clarify that. Like, okay. That's not quite what I meant.
No problem.
She is still here, but she's just no longer the mother I knew growing up.
Right. So that whole sense of so because so many of us, I think, are here doing what we're told to do and not what we're supposed to do. And I think a lot of us, with or without a medium, know that something is not right and we're not fitting where we're supposed to be. And I think a lot of us are not lucky enough to have that little niggle start, or if it does, we don't know what it is, or we ignore it because it's not as strong enough and we're not listening for it. But I'm just wondering, if there's anything in particular that this experience so far has taught you about the whole not doing what I'm supposed to do, been doing what I was told to do.
So I think it's different in everybody. It manifests in different ways for everybody. It can be a shake up in your life, which it was for me, but then it also transmuted into that niggle, that nudge that wouldn't go away. It could also manifest within your body somewhere if you're not listening to it. But usually what I've learned too is if you don't listen to those little whispers that are happening, those little, because a lot of people don't, they just fluff it off. They think it's your imagination. They think, oh, that's just a dream. But if you push it off, if you keep pushing it off, whether it's this lifetime or next lifetime, it will make itself known in a way that you don't want to, right? Mm-hmm. Like in a negative, not in a negative way, because nothing happens for a negative reason. It's all for a great reason. But it will show itself. It will make itself quite present if you don't pay attention.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think a lot of us still don't pay attention because we don't recognize that that's what it is.
Yeah,
because I think that there are a fair number of illnesses, repetitive stress injuries, all sorts of things like that, insomnia, whatever, which doesn't mean that that's definitely what it is. If you happen to have insomnia, it could be something else. But, I think sometimes when it gets to the physical level, it becomes, oh, there's something wrong. I need to go see a doctor, when there might be something else, which, again, I'm not against going to see doctors. You probably want to do that.
Right.
But yeah, there may be something else going on with it. So so I think there's a challenge to learning how to tell the difference. And I wonder, because I'm really starting to think that a big part of the problem with how we relate to ourselves and our work and our families and just life anymore is that we spend so much time thinking and doing, and we don't spend enough time just being quiet and
being present.
Yeah. I think a lot of us don't even know how to do that anymore. I know I get frustrated. This morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. and could not get my brain to shut up long enough to go back to sleep. And I'm sitting there going, really, there's nothing for you to worry about right now. There's nothing for you to worry about. There's nothing for you to think about. Nothing at all for you to do. And my brain is kind of sitting there going, but I'm awake and there's stuff and there's things and there's, what if this thing doesn't happen? And what about this? And it's like, it doesn't matter. Does not matter right now. And it's like this internal war, because the part that is so trained to do that doesn't know how to stop. And the rest of me is just like, you are wearing me out. I want to go back to sleep. Could we do that? And it's like, but no, there were things. Yeah.
Yes. So that is where, this is why what we are going through right now is so beautiful, because it's forcing us to be present. It is making all the distractions limitless, right? Like, we don't have all these distractions going. We don't have to run the kids to hockey all the time. We don't have our sports going on. Like, all these distractions are subsiding. And so it's forcing us to be present right now, which is actually quite beautiful. So we are being forced to go within ourselves right now. So I think it's a beautiful time right now. Fear for sure. I get that. I understand that. And I don't disregard that, but also there's that beauty in there too, right? Where it's forcing us to do this work on ourselves, to really look within and distinguish between what it is. Is it just my imagination? Is it just my anxiety kicking in? What is it? And if you just keep practicing, like when your mind was running a mile a minute there, there. And you just keep practicing, or you use different tools like automatic writing just to get it out on paper, just to get everything out. Yeah, there's little tools like that that can really help. There's pendulums as well that are helpful too, because then again, you kind of, it's a visual tool where you know whether it's just your imagination or is it your energy talking to you, speaking to you. So there's lots of little tools out there where you can distinguish between what it is. But for the most part, everything of our imagination really is stemmed from the spiritual realm. So if we can't imagine it, then it wouldn't have never happened. It's not within our vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's, do you know what I do? Am I explaining that right?
I think
Do you know
so.
what I mean? Yeah. So if you could imagine it, then it can happen. It's there for a reason. We just have to trust that. And that trust piece is a lot that we just forget because we are so set in our ways.
I imagine that this whole thing has required a lot of different kind of thinking on your part too, because it's a very different, you're going from a school environment where things are fairly well determined, though certainly with the element of surprise that comes from working with little kids, to something totally, I won't say totally unrelated, because I'll bet there were more things that carry over than we would imagine. But, what have you had to relearn, rethink, reimagine just to get to the point where you could even start to put this on paper and run with it?
So a lot of it wasn't relearning. A lot of it was just learning from the get-go.
Okay.
Right? Like, business was never my forte. Numbers were never my thing. So it was all from scratch. So there was a lot of learning and growth having to happen through this, and a lot of trust that within myself that I can do this like, yeah, so there was a lot of growth happening through this, a lot of first time things, a lot of messiness. Yeah, it just definitely made me step up and step out for sure. And I think that again, I was being forced to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is great. I know I really struggled with it. It was like nerve-wracking. It was scary, but exciting at the same time, and empowering at the same time, and satisfying. And yeah, it was super scary going from knowing I'm going to have a paycheck every 2 weeks to having benefits, to like making sure, benefits like, or don't have to worry about going to the dentist. We don't have to worry about getting our prescription filled. But now we have to worry about that stuff, or not worry about it, but it's not just, here's my card. It's paid for.
Right.
But at the same time, the feeling was totally different. It was calm. It was relaxed. It was like, again, that excitement piece was in there, that empowerment piece. Like, look what I can do. Look what we did. This is mine. And now, also when I'm working, I've heard it all along that if you are doing something you love, it doesn't even feel like a job. Well, now I get it. Now I 100% get it. I could be there for a good 10-hour day and it feels like I'm there for an hour. Like, not at all. Like, time just, where when I was at school, I would be looking at the clock like, oh my God, it's only been 20 minutes.
People ask me why I don't wear a watch. That's why.
Yeah, right.
If I don't know, I'm much happier.
Exactly. Or you get that surprise, like, oh wow, it's 2 o'clock. Okay, right.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen so much when I was at the school. But when I'm here, yeah, I literally look down. I'm like, oh my God, it's 4 o'clock. Where did that time just go? That wasn't that, like, holy. So now I get that saying for sure, 100%. And I, wouldn't change it for the world. 100% all in, love it. And now that's what I want to create now. I'm going to launch a coaching program soon where I can help others do the same. Because right? Like you just have this fire, this love, this, oh my God, if everybody just did this, right? And you just want to
Right.
help others um, harness all that into with whatever it is that lights them up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something really magical about that feeling of helping somebody else get that light to shine. It's powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have this question that it may or may not apply, but in the spirit of following the little nudge, I'm going to ask. So, you were talking earlier about all the things that you had to struggle with and still sometimes struggle with as part of making this transition. And I don't think you said this, and yet there was something about what you just said a couple minutes ago that made me think about the fear of fear, the fear of being afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a scary process, right? And I think that a lot of us are as afraid of the fear as we are of the actual process, and maybe more. Did you deal with that?
Oh yeah. So just kind of like it's again being present, like doing like worrying about what you're worrying about, what you're doing right now, instead of putting that like what ifs
Mm-hmm.
and all that into the future, right? Like so you're putting everything into the future when you just can't do that because that's where the fear is going to come up. Where you're predicting what's not even happening yet.
Right.
So you're putting that on yourself. Again, definitely a practice, definitely something you have to keep reminding yourself of. Even again, what we're going through right now, right? That in the future fear, we just can't do that to ourselves because we are putting up our own boundaries, our own blocks, and our own limitations when we do that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are more comfortable with the idea of thinking they know what's going to happen in the future, even if it scares
Yes.
them, than they are with the idea of saying, "I have no idea."
Mm-hmm.
Being like, I have got the faintest idea what's going to happen after I, go have this conversation with my boss, or tell this person how I really feel about this thing that happened, or what's going to happen with coronavirus. It's like, even though the future isn't here yet, the one you imagine feels real enough that there's something oddly comforting about it, even though it scares the crap out of you.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me of a really great book that I read early on. And it was Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. I'm not sure if you've heard of it,
I think
but it's
so.
a beautiful one to read. Yeah, it's a beautiful one to read because it does really help you with that fear base. It kind of just reminds you that universe has your back. Just kind of if you're following those nudges, if you're following your passion, then spirit will make sure things are okay. Everything happened, and then it goes back to again. Everything's happening for a reason. Things are not happening to you; they're happening for you. Even if you are going through some crazy times, you know that there's beauty on the other side. You're going to grow from it. You're going to learn from it. Um, you're going to something more exciting is going to happen than you realize. So that book really helped me too. Just knowing, just having that knowing that universe does have your back. And so far, like especially going through this process, right? When you're running into the banks, when they are saying no, when you're like, nah, but then you go back to the drawing board and you go back again. And I mean, I can tell you, like, we ended up getting everything we asked for, right? So that kind of stuff. Like, so I've had it happen time and time again where things haven't gone the way that I thought they were going to go. In my mind, they were supposed to go. They were planned this way, but it happened more amazing than I could ever have thought of, just in a different way. So that's another thing that I have learned through this process as well, is that you have a plan in mind. That's beautiful. That's great. But it's best to let go of the details. Have the plan in place for sure, but don't get so stuck and hung up on how specifically it's supposed to happen. Because there are going to be roadblocks, but if you are passionate enough to push through and keep going, those roadblocks will open into something you wouldn't even fathom. And it is just beautiful in the end.
I think that's really hard for a lot of people to believe. And yet, while you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking about how one of my previous guests, who is an actress and has her own theater company, has been looking for a space for years, and she just got one. And it turned out to be much bigger and much better than she ever expected, because the owner of the shopping center where her theater is going to be, would have been happy to have her in a smaller space, but was so enamored of the idea of having a theater in there that he bent over backwards to make it work for them. So that, he's, lowered what he can lower and, adjusted for it in other places to, keep things on the straight and narrow and that kind of thing. But they're getting a huge, beautiful space that was more than they ever could have imagined that they would get. And, all the time thought that they were losing the smaller space that they would have been, like, yeah, it's small, but we can make it work. And now they're going to end up with this thing that, it's a theater in an empty grocery store. It's going to be big and beautiful when it's done. And so, yeah, I think sometimes you have to be open to it so you don't shut it out. Because it could be so easy for someone in that situation to say, oh, no, we can't afford that. Don't even tell us about that because we can't afford it, and not be willing to listen when this guy's like, no, I want you here bringing people into this shopping center. So, I think you're, it's lack of attachment to the details. Somehow it will come together, but you have to actually let it, which is exactly how creative process works for artists and dancers and writers. And, it's the same thing. You have one thing in your head, and then you end up with something else because suddenly this character turns right when you thought they would turn left, or you accidentally put green where you meant to put red, and now you got to make that work. And, there's, you got to have flexibility in all of this stuff.
Oh, big time. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back again, just to that trusting piece, right? That we lost a long time ago. But once you're, and I'm not saying like once you're there, because it is, again, it's a practice that you have to keep reminding yourself. And, because I have gone through it myself, but there's still things that I want to put out there, or still things that my husband and I want to do, or my family wants to do. And I just have to, again, trust that it will all come together the way that it was meant to be. It's supposed to be. The timing will be there, bigger and better than I ever would have thought or planned. But once you're there, it is definitely a free feeling. That's for sure.
Is there anything that helped you to regain that sense of trust before you started to see how all of this was going to work out for you?
Well, luckily I have a husband who is also pretty much on the same pathway as I am. He also did the same thing of going from a pretty big paying job, 9 to 5 kind of deal, to opening up his own business as well. And going through the same spiritual awakening as I am. So I am very fortunate to have him. So if something wasn't going one way, he would kind of be that like reminder for me. A lots of, again, books that I have picked up. Again, I love the fact that if you just allow it, the right books come to you when you need them, which I absolutely love. So if I'm going through something, I'm drawn to a book, and then I'm like, oh yeah, right, okay, right. So, and then that's reassuring. I've got a tribe as well. I've got a tribe that reminds me of this stuff too. I didn't at first. Again, that was another trusting thing that I was like, okay, so me and my husband are going down this pathway, but my old friend, not my old friends, but my friends are totally thinking we're wackadoodle right now. So who do I talk to? But again, slowly the right tribe started to come in, and they too have been amazing backup. But I think a huge part of it is just diving in and trusting yourself. And you just have to be strong with that, because like I was saying with friends and as well as family, they weren't quite where my husband and I were. So when we were talking about, leaving our full-time positions and doing this entrepreneur stuff and following our passions and where we feel we need to be, we got a lot of resistance from everybody.
I bet.
I know it all came from a place of love, right? And fear, of course, fear as well, right? That they, want to make sure they want to see us go down the right pathway and do well for ourselves. But we just had to tell them that. We say we appreciate that. We know it's coming from love. Thank you so much for expressing your opinion. But we're going to keep going with this. It would be awesome if you support, please do. And of course they did. Of course they came along for the ride. But that was really hard too, when you have your family and friends who you tell everything to, and they're supposed to be your cheerleaders and everything. But when you throw this big bomb on them for my poor mother-in-law at a Christmas concert, and I just leaned over and I'm like, "Oh, by the way, I'm leaving the school board and I'm opening up a spiritual and wellness hub." And she's just like, the face like, "What?" Yeah, I'll tell you more about it when the Christmas concert's over.
That must have changed the mood for the rest of the concert.
I just got, So, So you just have to dig deep, and you have to just keep trusting the process. It is hard, but as you keep doing the work and you keep seeing things unfold, and as they unfold and you see the miracles happen, that's when you're like, oh yeah, all right, this is what you're talking about. How awesome is this? So, and then when those things do happen, there's your confirmation, and it feels amazing.
Did you have to learn to believe in miracles, or were you already pretty sure they were going to happen? Was the nudge enough to make you sure?
Oh no, yeah, no. I definitely had to learn. I still struggle with that too, right? Like there's still that fear base that like sneaks in there, and then you have to again go back, ground yourself, realize that where is that coming from? What is that trigger? Right? Because that's another thing too. A lot of it is triggers. A lot of us is fear-based from a previous something that's gone on, right? So then we have to kind of do a little detective work on ourselves and clear it and say, okay, that happened then. That doesn't mean it's going to happen this time. So it's definitely always a practice for sure. I know lots of people that are just free flowing already. And they're like, I can't wait to get there. I'm not there yet, but that will be amazing when I get there.
Yeah. I like that you phrase it as a practice, because I think we don't think of that as a practice. We think of things like, my best friend meditates all the time and she's been doing it for 20 years and that's why she's so serene and why I'm not, things like that. Don't think of the other things that, fall into that category too.
Well, yeah, because we haven't been doing it our whole lives, and then we're not just going to dive right in. Like it's going to be a practice. That's why I absolutely love some of the services that we offer where I am, where we have these float cabins for float therapy, where it takes away all distractions away from you, and you have no choice but to sit there with your own thoughts, which can scare the hell out of people, right? And so we have people that get out after like 15, like, oh, I just couldn't slow my mind down. I just couldn't do it. And it's like, and we kind of say, well, that means you really need to do it, right? Like you really need to practice then. And then we have people who it does take 2 or 3 floats, and then all of a sudden they get it. And they're like, oh my God, that was amazing. I got so many messages. I got so many downloads. This is awesome. Let's get rocking. So yeah, it's awesome. It's beautiful to watch some of the clients walk out when they have those moments.
Can you explain exactly how that works? Because I don't think I've ever heard of float pods before, and I'll bet I'm not the only one.
So it's also called sensory deprivation.
Okay.
Which I don't like to use that word because that is scary. Those are scary words put together.
Yeah, they are.
um, so there's pods and there's cabins. Our place has cabins, and they're about big 5x8 cabins, so they're quite spacious. Ours, I know there's others that aren't. And they got about 10 to 11 inches of water in them with 1,100 pounds of Epsom salt dissolved in them. So you are buoyant. You have no choice but to float, which is just an amazing break for your body. Your body doesn't have to do anything for a full hour. It can just
Wow.
do the healing. Yeah, just do the healing it needs to heal. It doesn't have to compensate for anything. But it's also beautiful for the mind because all the distractions are gone. These cabins are soundproof, lightproof. The water is actually the same as our skin temperature, so the brain doesn't have to worry about temperature gauging. The water's doing it for you. So your brain gets a chance to just, again, take away all these distractions and heal what it needs to heal. Or so they're amazing for concussion recovery, PTSD, chronic pain issues, insomnia, spiritual enhancement, athletic performance, muscle recovery, magnesium deficiency. So they have they tick so many amazing boxes. The other really cool part is that because the water is the same temperature as our skin, you get this really cool melting point where you don't even know what the body begins or where the water begins.
Ooh.
It's just, oh yeah, it is beautiful. Some people have even commented how it's almost like being held again, being back in the mother's womb, right? Just that nothingness, just that floatness, just that erasing it all and starting over again kind of feel, which is beautiful too. So yeah, those are the float cabins. That's flotation therapy.
Wow. All right, I'm totally intrigued by this now. Totally intrigued.
I'm sure you have one in your city.
Probably, but yeah, lately I've really been, hearing and noticing for myself too, how in the moments when I do get to shut up my spinning brain, that it's just like there's all this room in there, and suddenly it's like, oh, hey, I don't necessarily know what to do with this, but there's room for other stuff to come in, and I have to think for the niggling little voices to be heard better, and things like that, and for new ideas and stuff like that, which of course is the whole curiosity creativity piece. Have you seen that?
Oh yes. So a lot of people, we had this one client who came in, and he is very he's techie. So he does these like far advanced video game type crazy things that are way beyond me. And he was stuck. So he was working around the corner. So he came, he's like, well, I might as well float. I just need a break. So he came in for a float. He was only in there for like, I think like 20 minutes, half an hour. He like came out, and I'm like, oh my God, is everything okay? Like, that's a little quick. And he's like, no, I know exactly what I need to do. And like, he zoomed out of there, and he was able to finish his project because it just slowed everything down. It just let what needed to leave, and then let the downloads come in. So that was awesome. We also had another client who, same thing. She had creativity block, and she came in, and she's like, "Oh my God!" Like, she's like, came at the end of her float, but she's like, "All was well." And then I swear, about 10 minutes left of the float, I had boom, 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 all these like creative downloads of what I need to write about. Like, holy! And so actually, what I should be telling people is to bring a journal with them.
I was just gonna say, is it bad that my first thought about this is, what if I forget them and I still have 10 minutes in that 10 minutes? Because that would be freaking me out. Like, no, I have to write this down. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just what it does. It just, and it is a practice. Again, that's a practice at first. So we just kind of tell people, the only thing you can hear in these cabins, and same with your meditating, it's exactly the same practice. Is just focus on your breathing, the inhale, the exhale, and when the crazy thoughts come in, that's okay. Let them come. You don't battle them, because then that creates a whole other distraction. You let them come, and then we say, you kind of think of them like a cloud. So you let them come in, and then you let them keep on going, just keep floating away like a cloud, and then
That's
bring
what
it
I was
back to
not
that breath
doing
again.
at 4 a.m. because I was definitely fighting with them.
Yeah, that's the mistake too, because people think it's just supposed to be thinking about absolutely nothing, and you can't do that. But then you're creating that battle for yourself again. So we just say, let them come, don't fight them. Think of it as a passing cloud and let them go. Or people say, just say, okay, let the thought come in and happen, and say, okay, thank you for reminding me of that, and then let it go. And then that just cuts down that battle for you.
So does the float help to kind of jumpstart that process because you're taking all of the other stuff away?
For sure. Yeah, it definitely helps. It just, it definitely enhances the spiritual practice for sure. The meditation practice. It forces the brain really to go into that meditative state because there's no distractions around except for you.
Wow. All right. I'm gonna have to think about that one. I can see a Google search in my very near future. So I am curious to know what, if anything, you've taken from teaching kindergarten that does actually apply to what you do now.
For the most part, when we were that age, kindergarten and under, we are so fresh. Like, right, we are doing what we want to do when we want to do it. And if we want to be a doctor, let's be a doctor. If we want to be a witch, let's go into the forest and be a witch, right? Before society gets in and says, oh, no,
Mm-hmm.
that's not okay. Or, oh, no, that costs way too much money. Why would you do that? You need to be doing this, right? And so that's where I loved it. And that's where I actually struggled with kindergarten because I hated watching that being taken away from them at such a young age. So I was glad that I was there so that I could kind of like shift it as much as I could.
Right.
But I mean, you're battling a wall there. Like it was just not right. So that was part of the frustration with me, and almost that like, okay, you're ready to go, right? Like I can't handle this anymore. So that's where, and I like to remind people that too, is usually our passion was go back to when you were a child. What did you love doing? What were you always doing? Because that's definitely a sign that that's on the pathway that you should be on before society told you something different. But yeah, I just love how they're free. They're not. They have a lot less baggage, right? They just watch them, and they're just them. They're them. They don't have limiting beliefs. They don't have all that stuff stuck to them. If they have a question, they're going to ask you. There's no filter, right? Because they're doing it from heart. They're asking from heart center, not to be rude or mischievous or anything. They're truly curious, so they want to know, because they want to grow. So that's the piece that I definitely take with me. And I like to remind people of that. For sure.
Yeah. I feel like I say this all the time on this podcast and elsewhere, that because I know for myself that spending time with kids, especially younger kids, is such a great reminder of how we all used to be. And it puts me back more in that space, because when you're out of it, and you're not around kids very often, it's so easy to get sucked into the adulting thing and forget that there was ever anything else. And so I tend to, default to that prescription. Go hang out with a little kid, go watch them build, a ship out of Lego that doesn't look anything like a ship, but it doesn't matter, because as far as they're concerned, that's a ship, and whether it's a water ship or a spaceship or whatever. And that is the only thing that matters. And, before they get to I bought the kit to build the Ferrari, and so I'm going to build the Ferrari, which is what bothers me about Lego now. It's like, no, build your own thing and make it crazy and weird and unrecognizable. That's like the whole point of it. But
that's so individual.
Yeah, I feel like I want to say it's the easiest way to get yourself back in that energy, but I also realize that for a lot of people, it can be painful to sit there with it and realize that they don't know how to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't want to be all, this is a thing that works for everyone, because I don't think anything works for everybody in the same way. But yeah, getting back into that energy, however you can do it, whether it's, going out and buying yourself a Barbie doll if you used to play with Barbie dolls, or reading the books that you read when you were a kid, or whatever, I think does really, really good things for that part of our brain that we've forgotten exists, especially if we want to get it rolling again.
Yes. Yeah. We also like to call it connecting with your inner child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you connect with your inner child again, you remember what lit you up back then, what excited you, what were you spending all your time doing, and things like that. So, and a lot of us get stuck in that go, go, go work mode. Like, nope, I'm an adult now. I got to do this, this, and this. But when you stop and you just play for a while, that's the other thing. Play is so freeing. So much. Again, you don't have to sit there and meditate to get these downloads, these messages. You can be having fun and being free, and then that's also, distractions are gone, right? So then that's another great time to get some amazing messages and some aha moments. Like, oh my God, I love doing this. Why am I not doing this more? Mm-hmm. Why am I, right? So, so just connecting with kids or your inner child, if you don't have any children around you, by all means, then that's another amazing way as well. So that I encourage people to try too.
So I'm sitting here thinking about something that I've heard people say so many times in my life that makes me, if I'm honest, completely crazy. And I have a feeling it will have the same effect on you, which, especially because you've made this transition from the thing you should do to the thing you were called to do that you clearly love to do, that like puts you in such a flow state every day that you don't notice the passage of time, which is, they call it work for a reason.
It is, because we all are called here to do something. So it is a calling to do work, but if you're doing the work that really lights you up, then it's not painful work. It's not just putting in time work. It's not, you're going through that trance state of life work. Like, that's when you're missing the point of life. And that's where my husband and I were too. Like, we were in that trance state of life. So once you find that work, that is work that you are sent here to do, but it's just a totally different feel, different outlook on everything.
Yeah,
if that answers your question. I don't know.
I think so. I mean, it wasn't really a question, so I didn't help you out a whole lot there. But yeah, the idea of the trance state of life, I think, is really powerful, because I think we don't notice. I mean, there is like that stereotypical cartoon image, like for some reason, I always picture somebody like from the 50s, with the briefcase and the hat and the whatever, just like being on the treadmill, going through the motions every day. And, I mean, it's like, well, they call it work for a reason because it's not supposed to be fun. And it's like, well, okay, but it's not supposed to be torture either, because I just can't bring myself to believe that we're all here just to be tortured forever. What is the point if that's true? Why, why would that be true?
Who is saying that work isn't supposed to be fun, right? Like, who is saying that? Society is saying that, right? Like, so again, take back your power and make it fun. Don't let somebody else tell you that work isn't supposed to be fun. Don't let people tell you that this is what it's supposed to look like. Take back your power and say, you know what? No, that doesn't do it for me anymore. I want work to be fun, darn it. And figure out what that is. And I'm not saying quit your job and do it tomorrow, but find a way that's going to make it work for you. I mean, you could. There are lots of people that do, and definitely, and it works out, but it can be a little scary, especially if you've got a family and mortgage and all that fun stuff behind you.
Absolutely. And I think it's unfair to think that we're all gonna, figure out the thing that we're here to do, and we're going to unequivocally love every single bit of it too.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
I am never going to suddenly become a natural accountant who can't wait to sit down with an Excel sheet and put all of my stuff in it. I know that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but okay, if this is the price I have to pay and it's just this Excel sheet, or it's just, this other thing, that's still a whole lot better than feeling like you're on that treadmill with your briefcase and your hat in the 50s.
And I'd like to say too that it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows either, right? There is definitely some roadblocks that you have to go through, but it's just you just got to think of it like, how bad do you want it? How badly, how are you going to go back? How can you look at things differently? How can you go about going around this? Because there's definitely some hair pulling, tears. Oh my God, what am I doing? Wouldn't it be so much easier if I just woke up every day, did the same thing? I don't even have to think about it because I've been doing it for so long. I definitely had those moments too, where I was like, wouldn't it be nice if I could just wake up, go to work, put in time, not really have to use my brain, come home, right? Like there are those times too, for sure, that happens and pops up. But then you think about, for me, it was going back. Do I really want to go back into that trance state of not really knowing, just letting life go by and not feeling anything? And then that quickly whips me. I'm like, oh, nope, I'm good. I'll deal with it.
I feel like that's one of those things. And I don't, so many times in my life, this has come up this way for me, but it's like, Plato's allegory of the cave, where at the beginning, everybody is chained in front of this wall and there's a fire behind them and all they can see is the shadows on the wall. And then somebody gets out and he goes outside. And of course, they've all been taught that there is no outside, that there's nothing but the shadows on the wall. Somebody gets out and they go outside and they're like, wow, there's like this blue thing up there, and these big brown things with this green stuff on top, because they have no frame of reference for it as they see the outside world, and they rush back in because they're so excited and they're like, you guys, like, you should come out and see this thing. And of course, everybody is so trained, they're like, you have lost your mind and we are chaining you up forever. And of course, then the guy does lose his mind because, once you've been out, you can't go back in and be happy with what you were told was all that there was. And I think that that's true. I think once you get out of that trance state, once you even start to recognize that you're in it, because I've done the whole I can go in and phone it in and not use my brain thing. And at first it's sort of like, oh, hey, this is easy. This is cool. Easy paycheck. No big deal. But it starts to wear on you after a while too.
Yeah. It really does. And then, because then you're bored and you're letting life get away from you, and you're not even feeling anything anymore. You're not challenging yourself anymore. You're not growing. You're not learning. It's just mundane, like ho hum. Like, so
why bother?
Yeah, exactly.
We only have a couple minutes left, but you mentioned taking back your power, and I'm just wondering if there's anything that you have to say about taking back your power, especially in terms of how it went for you or what you learned that you'd like to share with anybody else.
So taking back my power to me was getting out of the society's box, right? That box that I was put in for so long, and being told what I should be doing and who I should be and what it all looks like. So for me, taking back my power was stepping out of that box, listening into my intuition, listening to that nudge, that niggle. Again, going outside that box and realizing that there's more to this whole thing called life than just that trance state that I was going through. And then taking back my power too of knowing who I really truly was. Again, scary, because here I have this set of friends that know me as this partier, drinker person and that's not me anymore. So I had to take back my power there and say, you know what, this is actually me. I love this part of me, and that doesn't serve me anymore. So that was huge in itself. It felt weird, and I've almost had like an imposter syndrome, or I still do sometimes too. But then again, taking back that power and saying, no, this this is me. This is what lights me up. This is what I want to do with my life. Taking back my power and owning my shadow parts of me as well. So the parts that are not so pleasant, but learning about where that came from. Where did that trigger come from? Where did that stem from? And then healing that part. So again, taking back that power and healing what I needed to heal within myself so I could move forward, so I could make the big, bold moves, and did the things that scared me.
Well, that's a lot, but I think that's great because there is, there's power in so many places that we don't think that it's hiding sometimes. And yeah, making those kind of choices is tough. I mean, I have to think that you probably got a whole lot of change back pressure when you were like, yeah, I'm not going to go out and party anymore. This isn't who I want to be anymore. We still do our broomball tournaments and things around here, and I'll have like one or two, and then like I was that crazy girl that had like a whole lot more, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I think I'll go home. Right? And it's like, what? Yeah.
So even then I was like, oh, is this really me? Yeah, no, it is. It is. Right. So,
yeah, I think you have to have that faith that you picked the right thing, that you can kind of feel it, like your niggle. Yeah. And now you look at things differently. So I could go out and party hardy, or for sure. But then my mind was like, but then I'm wasting a day. But then the next day I don't feel so well, and I'm just like lying around on the couch, and I go off I eat crappy foods, and right, and then I'm totally off my routine and what makes me feel good. And so that's where my mind heads now. That's this week's episode. Thanks again to Paige Kaufman. If you're enjoying the show, please do go to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review. It helps me so much to get the word out to other people. Thanks a lot. You can find show notes, the 6 creative beliefs that are screwing you up, and more at fycuriosity.com. I'd also love for you to join the conversation on Instagram. You'll find me at fycuriosity. Follow Your Curiosity is produced by me, Nancy Norbeck, with music by Joseph McDade. If you like Follow Your Curiosity, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends. It really helps me reach new listeners. See you next time.